Welcome back to Live from Paris. William Edwards is with me, which means one thing. It's time for business, William.
That's right, yeah.
We're going to start with the comments from Mario Draghi, which we have to say for a central banker are pretty strong.
He's, of course, politically neutral, the European Central Bank is at least, so he has been giving his opinions, but he has been keeping them relatively, reticent. But he has been saying that a brave leap is needed towards greater integration for the Eurozone. Now, when you hear a central banker say that, the sort of what I hear is Eurobonds, which is what François Hollande, the new French president, has been pushing for. Of course, Germany's Chancellor Angela Merkel is against the idea, but this move towards greater fiscal integration it seems to be a popular idea for Mario Draghi, the head of the European Central Bank. Let's get the details from Florence Villiers-Minot.
A call for action. A day after European Union leaders failed to find common ground on how to boost the region's stagnant economy, ECB President Mario Draghi sounded the alarm.
We are living a crucial moment in the history of the EU. The sovereign debt crisis has revealed serious weaknesses in its institutional makeup. In this context, the difficulty of finding joint solutions to the crisis have shown up in negative indexes in the markets.
In an effort to ease market turmoil, the ECB recently provided 1 trillion euros in extra liquidity to the Eurozone banks. But Draghi insists this cash injection is just a way to gain time.
We've reached a point in which to survive, the European integration process needs a brave leap of political creativity. Therefore, I have called many times for the need of a growth compact near the well-known fiscal compact.
Draghi's comments echo those of new French President François Hollande, who's called for a new growth component to fighting the crisis. Meanwhile, the idea of closer fiscal integration brings to mind Eurobonds, an issue France and Germany are at odds over, as seen at Wednesday's summit. According to Draghi, structural reform is the way forward to boost competition and jobs. However, the ECB president insists on the independence of his institution. It's up to governments to take decisive action to safeguard the future of the Eurozone.
So, William, how have the markets been reacting to all of this?
Well, the US markets were mixed yesterday. They were weighed on by these worries about the European situation, of course. The Nasdaq closed down. We have seen, of course, big falls recently on the US markets. Hewlett-Packard reported quarterly sales and profits that were better than expectations, but also 27,000 employees are going to be laid off. Now, the markets actually like that. The stock rose for Hewlett-Packard. Asian markets, similar sort of uncertainty we're seeing today. There was a good start, but you can see now the Nikkei pretty much flat. It's only the Kospi that's really in positive territory there in Asia.
So while we're talking about markets, how is the celebrity stock, it's to say, Facebook faring at the moment after that massive IPO?
Well,
a roller coaster ride, hasn't it?
It really has been,
yes.
Yeah. Of course, they started off at around $38 was the guide price. They briefly shot up for a few minutes to $45, and since then they've plummeted, really. They are still a long way off their guide price, a week on almost from their launch, and that's partly thought to be due to glitches on the Nasdaq exchange. Losses caused by this computer problem are thought to be worth around $100 million for brokers. That's a big hit. And legal and other challenges, investigations are underway by regulators as well. According to the Financial Times, problems with the Nasdaq software meant the brokers just didn't know how much what their positions were precisely for the first 2 hours or so of trading. When they got through detailed information on what exactly they held, there was a bit of a sell-off because they have held more than they thought they had, and that caused the stock price to drop, and it's not really recovered since.
Glitches or no glitches, some people say Facebook is not worth $104 billion full stop. But this hasn't stopped Facebook from forging ahead and putting out a brand new app all about photography.
That's right, and it's called, simply Camera. It's only available on iPhones at the moment, and what it is, it's broadly similar to Instagram, which is why we're talking about it in business rather than just in Tech24. I'm sure you will be taking a look at it, perhaps, Becky, in your program. Of course, Facebook bought Instagram for $1 billion last month. And Instagram does very much the same thing, an app for photo sharing. Why is Facebook doing this? Good question. Of course, they've already got the user base bigger than Instagram's. They have been able to make a similar app, maybe not quite as good, but it's only first version, so I'm sure it'll get better. Perhaps it was to buy out the competition because they thought Instagram might be a threat. But either way, it looks like Facebook and Instagram are going to integrate their technologies if the deal does go through. It's under regulatory scrutiny at the moment.
But we are still scratching our heads about whether or not that was a good buy for $1 billion. Now, let's change tack and talk about UK bank customers. They may face an unwelcome change if regulators get their way.
The Bank of England has been talking about making current accounts charged. Now, of course, in the US, in France, in many other countries.
In Australia, if I recall
In Australia,
rightly.
you have to pay for your current account. So this might come as a surprise for some international viewers. But in the UK, current accounts have traditionally been free. No banks have gone ahead with charges because, of course, if one bank did it on their own, then well, who would go to that bank, I suppose many people would say. The Bank of England says this is actually a bad thing. They say that it distorts the market and encourages mis-selling of financial products. They say that because the bank accounts are free, banks have to raise charges on other products, so you actually end up paying more for some services than you should. And if there were charges, there would be more competition between banks. However, of course, the banks, despite offering a free service for current accounts, they still managed to make some of the biggest profits in corporate history in the UK. And it would be a very brave government that would explain to the public that as well as having to actually pay to bail out the banks while bankers still get massive bonuses, the public also has to pay for their current accounts because the Bank of England says maybe regulation will be needed because no one bank would just step out there and start charging on their own. Maybe regulation should be put in place, but I can't see many governments being brave enough to do that. We'll see.
Me neither. Of course, banks use our money to invest, so they're gaining
well, exactly.
from it.
They do
so
rather
I think
well
there's going to
from
be
it.
a lot of resentment about that. Maybe people will start banking online instead of with high street banks. Now, flying high at a lower cost. That's what Air France is hoping to do after it unveiled some details of its latest cost-cutting plan on Thursday. This will see the carrier focus more on no-frills flights. Unions are concerned as the plan also envisages a reduction in staff numbers.
Lower fares but fewer jobs. Air France has a new plan to cut costs. The biggest change will be in the company's short-haul flights, where a no-frills, low fare will be introduced. Its discount brand Transavia will also be expanded, forming one of 3 new business units. The plan is to save €2 billion a year by increasing productivity, but also cutting jobs. It's been reported that some 5,000 posts will go, mostly through retirement and a voluntary redundancy scheme. But compulsory job cuts haven't been ruled out, and Air France staff are worried.
If I have to work more tomorrow, I'll do it to keep my job.
It's better to make bigger efforts now, so we can come back later.
At present, Air France has 58,000 employees, made up of 39,000 ground staff, 14,000 cabin crew and 5,000 pilots. For the first time in recent years of cost-cutting, all areas will be affected. The unions say there isn't much to talk about with management.
We can discuss reorganization, but we're not talking about salaries and clearly not redundancies.
But the airline group reported a net loss of €890 million last year and has debts of some €6.5 billion. Big changes will be needed to restore the group to profit.
That report from Stephen Carroll. Wrapping up our business news. Many thanks to you, William Edwards, for bringing us all the latest. And do stay with us here on Live from Paris. Lorna Shattuck's coming up with the headlines in just a moment. Bye-bye.